Improv Tipsters? Well, a while ago, when I first started doing the Improv Tips, one of the very first requests I got was from someone asking if I could do a scene with someone and then sort of play it back and sort of go through my thought and our thought process as we were doing the scene. And at the time, it seemed very daunting, and I don't think I was ready to do it. But this week, that's exactly what I'm bringing you. I have enlisted the aid of Dave Hill, who is a member of King 10 and who has done a million things. All of his information is down below, and he's a really great fun improviser. And so I enlisted his help, and we basically did just that. We did a scene, and then we played it back and sort of watched it and stopped and talked, and it's sort of like a director or actor's commentary of the scene that we just did. So I hope that this sort of fulfills the request, and I hope it's informative, and I hope it helps. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this little experiment.
Suggestion is stars.
Stars. I don't think I want to look at them up close. I don't think I want to know what they look like up close. I like feeling so far away from them.
Oh, Thomas, you're always afraid of knowing what's really going on. Even between you and I, eh?
Professor.
Yes. Please, call me Hendrik.
Professor Hendrik, I appreciate you taking me under your wing. And I know that I'm not in Nebraska anymore, but this is moving so fast.
Is it? Well, you're not in Nebraska anymore. Let's begin. Let's have a toast. Do you like champagne? Do you have champagne in Nebraska?
I've never had champagne.
Well, I packed a backpack. Here we go. Enjoy.
I think I might just look at it and maybe smell it. I'm too afraid to actually taste it.
Good, Thomas.
Oh! Ah! Oh!
Yes, that's your first step into a bigger world, my friend. There. Now let's stop.
Give me that telescope!
Yes. Look, take the name.
Oh! There's so much more to them up close.
Yes.
Is more to you up close?
The closer you get to me, the more there is.
Scene. Great, so by request, now what we're going to do is basically play the scene back again, and then we'll sort of stop and sort of say what we were thinking. We'll sort of tell our thought process along the way.
What were we thinking?
I wasn't thinking. It's so weird, like in the moment, you're not thinking a lot.
You're not.
So it's
Which is exactly what you should be doing, is not thinking a lot.
Exactly. And I remember when I got this request years and years ago, or not years and years, well, 2 years ago, when I first started doing the improv tips, I was like, that didn't even seem like a thing that could be done, but now we're just giving it a try, so it's a little bit of an experiment, but hopefully it'll be informative, like that's the idea. So let's see. So let's play the scene. Here we go.
All right.
Suggestion is stars.
Stars.
So great. So Lindsay says the suggestion stars, and I just thought of looking at stars, so I just immediately, like I usually do, I just go to the environment, I thought of the telescope, and I went with that. And then you were looking up at the stars.
And I think we had pretty much the same thought right away. And I think for me, I don't usually go environment, but it felt like something that needed to be environment.
Yeah. Great.
So that's like the serendipity of clear choices.
Yeah.
Is it just so happened we're both doing the same thing?
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes it just works out that way.
Because
if
we just started. I didn't really look at you to check in, and you were sort of lucky.
I was already kind of looking. I mean, I caught you peripherally that you were looking at the telescope. I was like, great, we're good.
But luckily you didn't think like stars, and then he thought he was on E or something. But you never know.
Look at this whole street full of stars.
That could totally work out too. We'll see what happens. Here we go. A little bit more.
I don't think I want to look at them up close. I don't think I want to know what they look like up close. I like feeling so far away from them.
Oh, Thomas, you're always afraid of knowing what's really going on.
Great. So the first little thing you said, I think you say a ton about yourself, about your character, sort of like letting it out there, and then I just sort of picked up on what he was saying. Oh, I don't really know if I want to know, and I just named it. I just said, this is what this means about you, Thomas, so that he could sort of like really laser in on, this is what, let's do this.
And when he was naming it, I could clearly tell by his choice. I mean, Paul and I, unfortunately, have not played as much as I would like to.
No.
But knowing him enough, I could tell that he was also putting a little bit of status or a little bit of kind of wisdom in his label of me.
A little bit English.
A slight English. I have weirdly had like this effect. I have this whole backstory pretty quick in this scene in my head, but I even when he was naming that and labeling it, which was great, I also could feel in him doing that a choice that he was making about his own character too.
Great.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Even between you and I,
Professor,
yes. Please, call me Hendrik.
Professor Hendrik.
Right, and even sort of the end of that previous line, I say, you don't want to know what's going on even between you and I.
Right.
So I try to bring it from the stars, because it's never going to be about that, back to us.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, like, that catches fire, and like you can tell, like, there's a moment where we look at each other, and now it's happening between us.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
And what did you think at that point?
What the backstory was,
Or what did you think at that moment? Like,
in that moment,
even between you and I, what did that mean to you?
It meant that there was an unspoken intimacy. That there was something intimate that hadn't happened maybe yet, but was going to happen in this scene.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and I didn't know what that meant either, but I knew that I wanted to bring it back between the two of us because then it would happen.
Yeah.
Whatever the scene was going to be would happen then. Okay.
I appreciate you taking me under your wing, and I know that I'm not in Nebraska anymore, but this is moving so fast.
Is it? Well, you're not in Nebraska anymore. Let's begin. Let's have a toast. Do you like champagne? Do you have champagne in Nebraska?
Great. So you start feeding that idea of me sort of being your superior, like filling in some of the details of the scene, which I think is the relationship is happening now, but you're filling in some details, giving some context, which is nice. And this thing about not being like, oh, I'm not in Nebraska anymore, like just feeds this idea like, oh, okay, you're really innocent, so it's great. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then I always love watching Paul's physical comedy and object work. So I genuinely, in that moment when you went and unzipped, I was like, what's it gonna be? That's awesome. Which is, and that speaks to, if you have the commitment and the ability to commit to object work and really create that physical space, it does bring it alive for your fellow players in a really wonderful way. Because that was a really true moment where I was like, what is coming out of this, this zippy picnic basket?
But here's the thing, that's just like a physicalization of what you were saying. You said this is moving so fast, so then I thought, how can I make it move faster? Again, going to the environment, what can I have, say, or do that makes it move faster? Well, what if we had a bottle of wine or a bottle of champagne? In fact,
even
it's a
more
celebration.
Yeah.
It just sort of ups the ante. Yeah, because it's like you're thinking really quick, like wine, celebration, champagne, boom.
Yep.
So let's do that. And then I always go by the idea, if you're ever going to do it now. So I'm ever going to try to apply with alcohol, this is the scene we're watching, so let's get down to it.
Star seduction, let's do it.
It's all happening. It's all happening.
I've never had champagne.
Well, I packed a
before.
backpack. Here we go. Enjoy.
I think I might just look at it and maybe smell it. I'm too afraid to actually taste it.
So so I'm afraid again, which I'm trying to call back and double down on in my character, and then he again, but this time physically, refuses to allow me to be afraid and goes even further than he had to that point. So that's just very great classic heightening in that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing that you did that I love is that you let your character bend. Right? A lot of times people sort of say, oh, my character's afraid, so he would never do that. If your character would never do that, then you have no dynamic in your character, right? And as Del used to say, don't let your character get in the way of the scene.
Yeah.
So Dave had his thing of being afraid, but I do this dramatic toast or whatever, and then he says, okay, and he even fearfully, he tries it, but I think that's when your character bends and reveals something new, and as Aristotle said, characters who are under pressure. So your character's even more under pressure, his fear is like changing, and oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? But it happens. Your flexibility lets the scene move forward, otherwise we're at an impasse.
And part of my thinking just in general about improv and when it comes to flexibility and having characters that are able to change. I think that's a really basic acting, writing, theater concept. But that flexibility, the way I like to think of it is they didn't just come out onto this field. It wasn't just like they snapped their fingers and they were at this field.
Right.
There was probably a lead up of time where flirtations or bold questions or whatever. There's probably 6 to 10 episodes before these characters got to this moment.
Right.
So it's easier to be flexible if you think about the life of the characters before
And also,
maybe even after.
It's a little chicken and egg too.
Yeah.
If you are flexible, it kind of implies that backstory without having to necessarily talk about it.
Yeah.
You feel like, oh, this goes by the cardinal improv rule of like know each other.
Right.
We know each other at least 6 weeks, it seems like.
Yeah.
And by sort of having these intimate connections, it implies a greater world that doesn't really exist until we just reach into space and call on it and create it.
Yep.
Good, Thomas.
Oh, ah, oh.
Yes, that's your first step into a bigger world, my friend. There. Now let's stop.
Give me that telescope.
Yes. Look, take the name.
Oh, there's so much more to them up close.
Yes.
Is there more to you up close?
The closer you get to me, the more there is. See.
And then that's it. And so it's just heightening. There's an improv tip from a while ago from Todd Stashwick that's called Footprints in the Snow. So we're not really inventing anything new. We're just sort of playing the cards that we have. We're sort of revisiting the beginning of the scene to find the end of the scene, and this is it, right? It's just like it's heightening. Your character's afraid, but then he's not afraid. He's sort of like opening up. My character sort of has this agenda. He's getting after that, and the second drink sort of like takes it to the next stage.
And talking about heightening, once we have the telescope and the champagne and the burgeoning relationship, we don't need more elements than that. Right. So going back to the telescope, going back to the toast, reinvesting in things you've already done. At a certain point in a scene, we don't need more moving parts.
I think that's true. That's something I tell, especially my beginning improvisers a lot, is that it's not a like an ever-widening angle of ideas.
Right.
It's like a couple of ideas and we braid those ideas. Like, if it gets to be too much, and there's an improv tip just recently called simplicity, if it gets to be too many things, even too many good moving parts, that's not good for the scene.
Nope.
Okay? So, I'm Paul Vaillancourt, this is
Dave Hill.
and this is sort of what we were thinking as we're doing the scene. Hope it's helpful.
Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Please leave me a comment down below and tell me what you would like to hear an improv tip about. And also, please subscribe and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. All the links are in the description down below. Thanks.